In today's world, it feels like everything is a political minefield. So if you're a museum or historical society, how in the world do you talk about controversial history without sparking a huge firestorm? Well, let's get into it, because it turns out the secret isn't about what you say, but how you say it. So it all started with this. A pretty simple sign, right? For the 4th of July, the Pawling Historical Society put this message up on their roadside sign. The whole point was just to get people thinking about the different ways people saw things back in 1776. It's a little provocative, sure, but it's an idea that's straight out of the history books. And oh boy, did it make people think. Maybe a little too hard for some. Pretty soon, an angry phone call came in from a local who was furious. They said it was a thoughtless, controversial message to post, especially in these divided political times. Now, the society, they stood their ground. They didn't apologize, and they didn't take down the sign. But the whole incident brings up a massive question for anyone who works in public history. So, was it? Was it really too controversial? This is where it gets super interesting. The answer has almost nothing to do with the topic itself. I mean, come on, being against monarchy is kind of central to the whole American Revolution story. Now, the real issue is all about how you frame that topic for a modern audience. Okay, this right here is the absolute heart of the matter. For any historical society, the real danger isn't bringing up a concept like No King's Day. The danger is when you start to sound like you're pushing a modern political agenda instead of just doing your job, which is to give people historical context. And this is usually where things go off the rails. You get into trouble when your language sounds like you're advocating for something, or when it looks like your event is siding with a political group that exists today. Using modern slogans without that historical backbone, that's another one. Basically, as soon as it looks like you're taking sides in a 21st century fight, that's when your funders, the town boards, and all your trustees start getting really, really nervous. So, how do you sidestep all those landmines? It's simple, really. You just shift the whole conversation. Instead of using history to make a point about today, you use today's hot topics as a doorway to get people curious about the past. Your whole approach becomes, hey, isn't it interesting that people are talking about this stuff now? Let's take a look at how they were debating really similar ideas way back in the 1770s. And check this out. This shows the difference perfectly. If your event is called No King's Day, Then and Now, it kind of sounds like you're promoting a modern movement. But what if you call it No Kings, Debating Power and Authority in Revolutionary America? See the difference? Now you're interpreting history. You're sparking curiosity, not asking for an endorsement. It's a small change in wording, but it makes all the difference in the world. This quote absolutely nails it. Let that sink in for a second. Being neutral doesn't mean you just stay silent and avoid anything tough. Real neutrality comes from giving people that rich, messy, multi-sided context so they can understand the past for what it was. And this all comes back to the core mission, right? Your job is to show where ideas came from, to embrace all the complexity, and to show that there were multiple points of view. I mean, the American Revolution was political from the get-go. Okay, so that all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually pull it off? Well, you're in luck. There's a really simple 4-step framework that gives you a safe and super effective way to connect old history to the stuff people are actually talking about right now. The order here is everything. First, you have to ground the entire conversation in the 18th century. Second, use primary sources. Let the actual historical people do the talking through their letters and pamphlets. Third, and this is a big one, show all the different viewpoints. Bring in the loyalists, not just the patriots. And finally, the most important step of all, ask questions. Don't just give answers. Invite people to reflect. Seriously, that last step is your superpower. When you ask good questions, you're basically handing the keys to your audience. You're empowering them. You stop telling them what to think, and instead you create a space for them to think. Think about a question like this. It immediately makes you put on your history hat, right? It forces you to get past all our modern ideas and try to imagine what liberty meant to somebody living back then. Oh, this one's great because it instantly brings in the complexity. It gets your audience to realize that big ideas like liberty doesn't apply to everyone in the same way, which leads to a much richer, more honest understanding of the time. In a question like this one, it makes history feel human. It's not just about the big name founders anymore. It's about how regular, everyday people grappled with these huge, world-changing ideas in their own lives. So why is this context-first approach the clear winner every single time? Well, because it does two things at once. It helps you fulfill your actual mission as a historical institution, and it totally reassures the people you rely on, your funders, your community, your board. Think about it. When you frame your programs this way, you're not hosting a political rally. You're building an educational experience. You're boosting civic literacy and critical thinking skills. And these are exactly the kinds of outcomes that funders, especially with the big 250th anniversary of the revolution coming up, are excited to get behind. Look, for the people who write the checks, the difference is night and day. They are all in for supporting historical interpretation, civic education, and thoughtful discussion. What makes them nervous? Anything that smells like you're endorsing a modern political campaign. This whole approach keeps you firmly on the side they want to support. So, when you boil it all down, getting through these tricky conversations is actually way simpler than it seems. It just comes down to a few key rules. All right, here's the bottom line. 1. Frame everything historically. 2. Don't use modern slogans as your catchy headline. 3. Keep the focus on the ideas of the 1770s, not the politics of the 2020s. And 4. The golden rule. Ask questions, don't just make statements. And if you follow that playbook, you're not being political, you're being a historical society. You're doing the critical work of helping your community understand the complicated, messy origins of the world we're all living in today. Because in the end, your real job isn't to hand people a bunch of easy answers. It's to arm them with the context and the curiosity to ask better, deeper, more important questions for themselves. So the only question left is, what will you ask?